So just go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us your name and age, and kind of take us through what happened.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Papale. I'm currently 31 years old, but when I was 17 years old, I went into sudden cardiac arrest. Growing up, I was a really competitive basketball player. I was starting to get recruited to play basketball in college, and I never had anything seem like I could possibly have something wrong with my heart. I never had signs and symptoms of heart disease. I always went to my physicals every year, and doctors told me that I looked perfect, didn't look like I had anything wrong. One day, at the end of the summer, between my junior and senior year of high school, I was working at my dad's basketball camp, and I woke up early in the morning on August 24th, 2006. I went through a full basketball workout at about 6 in the morning. Everything was fine, completely normal. Nothing stood out. After the basketball workout ended, I went over to another building where the basketball camp was being held. I was a counselor at the camp, and I walked in at about 8 a.m. And I don't remember anything after that. At 10:30, I was sitting on the bleachers. My best friend was sitting right next to me, and my brother was on the court refereeing a game. And I kind of just face planted. I hit the floor and went into sudden cardiac arrest. And unfortunately, as we all know, the only way you can survive cardiac arrest is by getting very, very immediate CPR and quickly shocked by an AED. Um, there was no AED in the building where I was, and the athletic trainer at the camp actually did not perform CPR on me because I was agonal gasping, and it wasn't thought that it was needed. So I got really lucky that somebody did call 911. And when they called 911, there was a man in the building next door that was a volunteer EMT. And he was sitting at his desk working at his normal 9 to 5 full-time job. And he got the call on his pager, came over and gave me CPR. He saved my life and saved my brain and kept me alive until an ambulance came. And they were able to shock me with their defibrillator in the ambulance. So that's just pretty much the summary of the story. I obviously from there I was rushed to the hospital, and that led to my diagnosis.
So going into a little bit more about your hospital stay and everything after that, kind of what was your recovery process?
Yeah, it was challenging. I would say both mentally and physically. The first thing was hearing that I have a heart disease called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. And it was so just unknown to my family. I mean, we never thought that young people could be affected by heart disease, which we were completely wrong about. So with that, my doctors told me that I would never play competitive basketball again. And at that point in my life, basketball was really what defined me. It was the only thing I did, the only thing I cared about. So emotionally, that was really challenging. I hadn't implanted defibrillator placed, and was dealing with that. But I would say from an emotional standpoint, it was hard to get that news about basketball, but I was also able to put it in perspective because, the doctors did say that I almost died the day of my cardiac arrest. And some would say that you did technically die because that's what cardiac arrest is. But, when I left the hospital it was a recovery, just getting used to my ICD, just kind of getting back to walking around and being active and trying to figure out life because, you're in the hospital, you're being monitored by all the doctors and nurses, and you feel really safe. And then you just get sent home. And I was living at home still, and my parents obviously really cared and were trying to do everything they could, but they weren't medical professionals. So that part of it was really scary. So it definitely took some time to get over that. But I'm lucky to say now that my life is really normal, both from a emotional and a physical standpoint.
Yeah, I think I'm very lucky in that too. I really just want to ask you this, I think more for me than just the interview in general. How did you cope with not being able to do sports? Because I still don't know if I can do
Yeah.
volleyball. I'm kind of in that stage where like it's
Hmm.
everything that I do. Um,
Yeah.
so how did you cope with that?
Yeah. So at first, it was like the initial feeling of it was like, a lot of anger and sadness and depression and frustration. Like I said, I think for me, like the first thing that put it in perspective was that my doctor basically said because where I was did not have an AED and because there was such a delay before CPR was started, that I essentially had a 1 in a million chance of surviving. So like for me, like as crushed as I was about basketball, that news helped me put it in perspective. And then from there, like, I kind of got through like the hospital, I got home, and then I had to figure out like if I wanted to stay involved in basketball. Like it was clear like I was never gonna play again. But I ended up coaching. It started out with like obviously at a youth level, went to, a travel basketball level, and eventually went to coaching full time in college. And I think that was kind of how, like, I still obviously loved it, and wanted to be around it. But I think once I was able to realize, because sport doesn't define a person, and once I was able to realize that, like, once I was able to realize like there's more to me as a person than being a basketball player, it allowed me to kind of move on from it.
Yeah, that's that's good that you were still involved in it. I just still don't know what I want to do. So that
It's
I
challenging.
yeah. Um, I know that you said that you don't remember it. I don't think anybody really remembers that I've talked to that has had sudden cardiac arrest. But how did it affect those close to you, those people that saw you collapse and your family members after everything that you went through?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that it's always that's been harder for them because I don't remember any of it, and they had to sit there and watch, and no family member should have to watch someone else in their family be helpless, and not know what to do. So I mean, it was so hard for them. I mean, my brother was 13 at the time. My dad, similar to what I'm sure your parents went through, like you're never supposed to have that feeling like your child is not going to make it and you're going to outlive your child. And both my parents had that feeling, in that moment. And then for a couple of days while I was still really critical, it was unknown if I was going to survive or not. So, um, I mean, I can't even imagine what that feeling's like. I mean, the minutes must feel like days, and days must feel like years, just waiting to get answers and figure out that everything's going to be okay. But yeah, I mean, it was really challenging for them.
Yeah, I think Patty, a couple days ago, I fainted and my mom just couldn't get over it. And every single time we had to tell the emergency workers like what was happening, she would start crying, and I felt so
Yeah.
bad. Instead of like her comforting me, I was comforting her.
Yeah. No, it's tough. How'd that go, by the way? Did they?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Oh,
Um,
good.
I ended up just only having like a slight brain bruise, and I'm fine now.
Okay. Good.
It was a little scary for her at the moment.
Yeah.
So now that you've come out on the other side of it and you've started your own organization, what is some of the work that you're doing regarding SCA?
Yeah. I think the first and most important thing is raising awareness about it and making sure people understand it, and knowing the difference between sudden cardiac arrest and a heart attack, knowing what sudden cardiac arrest is, knowing that heart disease doesn't just affect, older people or inactive people, that it affects people of all ages, genders. There's no discrimination with heart disease. So I think that's the most important thing, or one of the most important things. But so that's kind of like where we started, but ultimately we donate AEDs. So we donate our AED donation program donates AEDs to schools, businesses, families, and other organizations that need them. And with our donations, we assist with setting up emergency action plans and providing CPR, AED training and certification. So as of today, we've donated 148 AEDs, and probably have like 3 or 4 that should get posted before the end of the year. So we've done that, and then we also help raise and fund hypertrophic cardiomyopathy research projects. So any project that focuses on the overall knowledge, the genetic testing, treatment, lifestyle for patients, any of that research for HCM patients, we support the funding. So we've donated $35,000 to support research funding, and that's kind of where we started. And since then, we've also started doing some patient support. So supporting patients, to kind of do exactly what we're doing now, just to have someone to talk to, have someone to bounce ideas off of, have someone to just lean on if they have a question about their disease and what's going on. And then the final thing that we just launched is our cardiac screening program, where we offer free EKGs to children, teens, and young adults. So we're kind of calling this like our primary prevention. Like it's great to have AEDs and people that are trained in CPR and AED instruction, but as we know, the survival rate for cardiac arrest is so low that a lot of things have to go really well for someone to survive. So, we're hoping with this program that we can maybe detect some heart disease in young people before they're in that life or death situation. So, kids will be able to sign up. They'll be able to get a free EKG. It'll be interpreted by, a cardiologist or an electrophysiologist, and they'll leave the screening with an interpreted EKG, and if they need to get follow-up testing or not.
That's really cool. I was looking into the links that you sent us,
Yeah.
and Patty and I didn't quite realize how many people and how much work it goes into it. So I don't think we're going to be doing heart screenings anytime soon, but hopefully we'll get there one day.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but yeah, like I said, if you guys ever do want to do it, I'm happy to tell you how we got it going.
Yeah, I think we'll be pestering you about it later on.
That's good. That's the way. That's the more people doing it, the better.
Yeah. What is, now that you're more educated about sudden cardiac arrest, now that you're a survivor, what is something that you wish that more people knew about sudden cardiac arrest?
Oh, great question. I mean, I guess I would say the one thing I wish that everybody knew was how to react if something happened, and I think there's a lot of things that need to be done, but one of them is more CPR and AED education, because the survival rate for cardiac arrest is so low. It's less than 10%, and it's been that way for so long. I mean, if you look back, I think it was the same like 30 years ago. So like there's definitely more AEDs out there. We see them all over the place. So just placing AEDs, maybe that isn't completely the answer. It's obviously part of a piece of the puzzle. But I think the next piece is educating people on how to perform CPR, how to use an AED, that anybody could use an AED, right? So if there's one thing I wish, it would definitely be more CPR AED education.
Yeah, for sure. Now that I mean, this happened to you probably over a decade ago. Um, what would you say to somebody that has just recently survived sudden cardiac arrest and are trying to kind of feel their way through it and figure out life after it?
Yeah. My suggestion for anybody that is going through it would be, number one, listen to your doctors and trust your doctors and lean on them for a lot of guidance, because they obviously deal with patients every day and they study whatever disease that you have, and they're going to keep you safe. So that's one thing. But the other side of it is connect with as many patients as possible. Meet people that have gone through what you're about to go through, because knowledge is power, and the more people you can talk to about it, the better it's going to be. And the last thing is that heart disease patients can have a really long and a really normal life, and it's not going to happen the day you get home from the hospital. It's not going to happen a month after. It might not happen a year after. It took me certainly some time, but you can have a really long and normal life, and you just have to trust that. And again, listen to your doctors and listen to other patients, and eventually you'll get to that point.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. This is my last question. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you're especially thankful for?
Yeah, I'm obviously very, very thankful for the man that provided me CPR, because without him, I would have died. And there's no doubt in my mind about that. And then I would say just thankful for my friends and family, because when you go through something that's a challenge in life, it's important to have a good support system, and I really was lucky to have one. And when I was in the hospital for 2 weeks when I was 17, I had people there every day, just hanging out, making the time go by faster. So without them, man, I probably would have lost my mind. So
Yeah, I mean, I had mine during COVID, so I certainly did lose my mind.
yeah, because nobody can come to the hospital.
But yeah, that's all for my part. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
No, I think that's it. If you need any more information from me or about In a Heartbeat or whatever, just let me know if you need whatever you need. And yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'll definitely be emailing you whenever I post this, of course. and probably, like I said, asking you about heart screenings and ADs because Patty and I still haven't really figured all of that out yet. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said, whatever you want to do, the AED is definitely easier to start implementing like right away. But whatever you guys need, just reach out anytime. And 'cause I'm not like an expert on it, but I can certainly help. I think in a lot of different ways.
yeah, well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Cool.
Like I said, I'll let you know when I post it. But yeah,
Cool. Sounds good. All right. Sounds good.